The Minister of the newly created Ministry of Art, Culture and Creative Economy, Hannatu Musawa, recently outlined her 8-point agenda at the Art and Tech District in Abuja. She said a strong creative and cultural economy is a key driver of growth and presents an opportunity to accelerate Nigeria's development on a local and global stage. First on the agenda for her is making Nigeria Africa's creative capital in her vision, Nigeria Destination 2030. Her plans to push for skills development through comprehensive training programs and fast-track the improvement, creation and implementation of policy frameworks that effectively stimulate increased revenue generation, job creation, and sustainable growth across the entire sector, amongst others, make up the 8-point agenda. Joining us in the studio to talk more on this is CEO, the Musical Copyright Society of Nigeria Limited, Mayo, Ayilaran. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
Right.
Yes.
The minister has rolled out her plans for the sector, and there's been diverse reaction to these plans that she has. But from your perspective, what stood out for you that you believe will move the sector forward?
Yes. First, one must commend the vision of the president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for creating that ministry, that is having a creative sector or creative economy ministry, which underscores the fact that the government is now paying quality attention to creativity in this country. And from the angle of the minister rolling out an 8-point agenda, it's a good one, it's a good starting point from which certain questions will start to arise. That is, how do we define the creative economy? What constitutes the creative economy? Is it the bam bam dim dim, that is the entertainment angle alone? You know, what are the components of the creative economy? When we understand this, we'll be able now to dive into the agenda properly.
Okay, so talk to us from your perspective now.
Yes.
What your idea of a creative economy is, and which are the ones that have the potential in the country to actually drive this economy.
Yes. Why I commend the vision of the president in really creating this ministry is because heretofore there have been activities that people have been tagging as creative industry. So we need to now, identify those creative industry. What makes up the creative industry? In doing that, we'll have to examine the basic norms of those industries. What are the laws that were in place to protect those creativities? So we have agencies that have been there working in this creative industry. For example, we have trademarks, patent and designs office. We have NOTAP, we have the Copyright Commission. So those are the bedrock of the creative economy. So when you harness this, you have to liaise with those industries, with those agencies. Then you now have the private sector aspect, the Nollywood, the music industry, what we call the entertainment industry, the angle of technology, the literary side of it, because we have quite a lot of literary giants in this country that are part of our creative industry. So we also have the inventive people who can invent things that we can patent. What of our traditional knowledge, traditional creativity? People in the so-called unorthodox medicine, for instance. the people we refer to as the babalawos,
that is also part of the
part of
it. Yes.
Really?
Yes, when somebody will be able to identify certain herbs and plants and bring them together and say, hey, this one can cure cancer, for instance.
I think that has
that's health.
Yes, it's part of creativity, because once you are able to, properly harness this thing, and you are identified as the creator, it could be patented.
Okay.
And that could start to earn money for. But we really need to, get all these stakeholders together in a room where they brainstorm and they sort of map out the route.
Let's talk about
harnessing our creativity.
Right. Let's talk about the area where you are largely, where you largely focus on, which is the issue of intellectual property.
Yes.
A lot of works have been copyrighted.
Yes.
A lot of when you have your own creativity or your own content, people tend to copy, mirror. At the end of the day, you don't make the money you're expected to make and even get the credit.
Yes.
So how much do you think has been done in ensuring that intellectual property are protected, and what do you think is needed to be done?
Yes, government has done quite a lot by giving the sector a new law. We now have a brand new Copyright Act, which was released to the public in May. That is Copyright Act 2022. That alone has created a lot of protection for the creator. It is now left. Then there are organizations, agencies. For example, I mentioned the Nigerian Copyright Commission, which is in charge of copyright matters in this country. And the Copyright Commission is, stepping into the field now to check this kind of infringements that you have talked about, because there are some criminal liabilities now that are well defined within the law. So it is now left for the NCC, working with other enforcement agencies, to make sure that all these things are put in place. Then the owner themselves, they will have to come to the forefront to support these agencies. For example, the organization that I work for also is a kind of a protective agency for these authors. The nation is losing quite a lot of money. Recently, the media is awash with news that, hey, Ashake filled the O2 Arena in UK. But what is Nigeria as a nation getting from such? So from when all these agencies are working hand in hand, harnessing all these resources, then something naturally will come back to Nigeria. But as it is now, all these leakages are there. But with the new law, with all the agencies now working together, we will be able. And we should not forget that Nigeria is a huge market that is attracting all these foreign interests. All of them, they want to come to Nigeria to corner the market, to balkanize the market. The France, the British, the Americans, they are all interested in the Nigerian market. And they are starting by attracting our individual artists to their country first, so that the artists, rather than putting Nigeria first, they see Britain first, they see America first. So how many of them will want to go to, for instance, National Stadium in Surulere to perform? They will not go there, but they will be glad to go to Wembley. How many of them will want to go to?
They're looking at how many persons will want to pay for the ticket as well. How much will they make if they are to perform in the National Stadium, for instance? How much would they make? They look at the size of the stadium, they look at the number of persons who are willing to sacrifice such amounts of monies. Are Nigerians willing to pay that sacrifice as well?
Yes, that is the area that this agenda of the new minister should focus on. How do we harness all this and use all our local talents with our local facilities to generate the needed funds? The government will have to spend money. All these Americans, the British, and so on, they pump money into their festival before the people buy into them. A lot of money is pumped. The French people, the French government, they pump a lot of money into their creative industries. For example, in virtually every country in the third world, there is an Alliance Française. Then the German too, you have Goethe Institute. Yeah. How many of such institutes do we have as Nigerian new structure? So these are the areas we will need to look at, so that there is that awareness to concentrate on the Nigerianness of our culture, Nigerianness of our creativity, and how we can harness.
Is our creativity that difficult to sell? Because if you go to some other African countries, go to South Africa, for instance, you see how they package themselves, their culture, they sell it out to other African countries and even across the world. You go to Ghana as well, you see how they put so much effort to package, their culture, whatever it is, their creativity, to sell to others. But why is it difficult for us to be able to achieve that?
That is because there is no deliberate effort, first from the government to take the lead. Then the private sector will now buy into it. Once they see that it is possible, it will be easy. The government will have to take the lead. Okay, this is the campaign that we want you guys to help us to market. And these are the budgets we have for the first year, second year, third year. That's what we call the short-term approach, then the medium-term approach, and the long-term approach. It is only in the long-term approach that the private sector will totally take control. But for the first 1, 2, 3 years, the government will take the lead, and people will now see that government is budgeting quite a good money into this sector, and if we all go into it and buy into it, we will make profit.
Right.
Once we are able to do that, for the first 3 years, government will take the large chunk of the responsibility. From the 5 years to, say, 8 years, private and public. Then, thereafter, it will be more of private.
So, I was actually looking to asking you about what the role of PPP can play, which you've spoken to. But the government says that, the administration says they are looking to target 50 million jobs in 3 years. So how do you think this, they can leverage the opportunities in this creative sector under the Ministry of, under the Minister, Hannatu Musawa, to also tap into creating more jobs? What are the areas for them where the youth can be meaningfully engaged?
Yes, they have to properly identify the value chain.
Which is?
The value chain in the creative sector. For example, when you take a musician, for instance, as a musician who is going on stage, what are the value chains involved? The musician with his band, maybe a band of about 10 members. You have created job for 10 already. Then, what of the crew? The sound people, the lighting, the stage managers, and so on. Those are part of the value chain. You have created for another. You have created job for another set. Then around the venue of where a concert is to be held, there are bars, restaurants, lounge, and so on and so forth, that people are employed to serve. So these are the value chains that, when properly harnessed and managed, will create a lot of jobs. For example, if you are going into cinema, say for example, Silverbed, as you are approaching, before you even go into the cinema hall, there are kiosks selling to you popcorns. Those are part of the value chains of the cinema business.
Interesting.
And Coke, soda, and so
we don't
on
have
and
to
so
mention names now,
right.
so that we are not promoting
yes, I'm just
this business.
Thank you.
Yes.
So those are the value chains that, if properly harnessed, then secondly, we need to have a data bank of our national festivals. From what we have about 500 ethnic groups in Nigeria. And each of these ethnic groups, they have what we can identify as festivals, yearly or annual festival that can attract people.
Yeah.
If a data bank of this is harnessed by the nation, then a national calendar is drawn up on this. Publicity with regards to this calendar is made. From the beginning of the year, people will say, so and so is happening in Calabar. I want to go and participate in it, or I want to go and watch it. The kind of push, the kind of propaganda that we give to this kind of festival will attract both national and international audience. And from that, you also have this value chain to create job for millions of people within the territory.
Right.
Because I can give an example of my own local area. I come from a small town in Ondo State. We call the place Idoani. There is this annual Egungun festival there. The funny thing is that they call this Egungun Alemosoko, that flog people, that naturally people will not come out. But the way they package this festival, you have people coming from Europe, from America, from all over countries.
I didn't get to flog people. So you mean people come from?
They come to even witness.
They come and be flogged?
Yes. Not to witness people. To witness and to enjoy the whole thing. It's not that really they flog, but what I want to draw out here, during that period, you see most hotels and surrounding they are filled up.
And that's where I'm going.
Bars everywhere.
You see what happens with the Osun Osogbo Festival.
Exactly.
Where a lot of people come from outside the country to come and witness this festival and all of it. But we still have a situation, because earlier you talked about campaigns.
Yes.
We see the attitude of people towards some things. For instance, those who make shoes.
Yes.
Some Nigerians do not want to buy Nigerian-made shoes. They feel it's not up to standard, the quality is not this and that. They prefer foreign shoes and all of those. So it's still a matter of attitude of people towards creatives, projects, and all of it. Yes. How do we change that? Because at some point we had a campaign about buy Nigeria, grow the Naira. Some time ago we had that campaign, but along the line, I don't know what happened. It just went into the air like that. Yeah. Can we really have that campaign that would change the narrative and change the minds of Nigerians towards, creatives and their products?
Thank you. It's part of what I have said earlier on. By having a short-term, a medium-term, and long-term plan. During the short-term period, more or less, 80%, 90% of the responsibility lies.
What failed at that time that you think could be addressed this time around if we are going to have a campaign?
When somebody leaves office and another person comes in, the person wants to create an identity of his own. They don't want to go on what they met on grant. That is because if there is a policy on grant, that for the next so years, these are the things any coming minister must follow. There won't be such kind of abandonment. So when they come in, they know that, this one is on. It is only when they complete that they can start on another project. That is why I give former President Buhari's administration some credits, because they didn't go about setting up new projects. Most of the projects they met on grant, they worked on them to complete them, rather than abandoning them and starting fresh ones. And I believe President Tinubu is also following the same trend. So that with that kind of continuity, then there is stability. People have confidence that, if I'm able to do the right thing in this industry, there is no way I can lose out. It may take time, but I will still get my investment back. But when there is no stability in terms of policy, implementation, or even in the policy itself, then you have a situation whereby you start a very good thing way back, then suddenly you can't explain why it happened. But now, if we have that kind of arrangement on grant, that, hey, you are ministers, we are not sending you to go and create a new image for yourself. What is there that the government has been trying to finish? See that you can finish them.
Interesting.
I think Wike started something. He said, this Abuja rail line, I'm finishing it in 8 months, which is a good one.
Giving yourself a
It's better than say, oh, I'm canceling that to draw another route, for the rail line.
That's right.
Yes.
Well, the creative industry is highly competitive, world over.
Yes.
Arts, culture, and creative economy, which the minister actually oversees now, she talks about making Nigeria the creative capital of the world. Isn't that too ambitious? Looking at the competitive rate, and Nigerians who always want to, consume foreign content rather than local content.
Well, it's ambitious, highly ambitious, and achievable, but within what time frame? Is it within the next 4 years? If she says within the next 4 years, I would say.
Well, she said destination 2030.
Well, that is part of what we are saying.
That's
that
7
is
years from
long
now.
enough.
7 years from now. Yeah.
It's long enough. That's from short term to middle term and maybe long term. It can happen. If there is enough articulation of ideas and bringing together all these efforts.
Yeah.
Because if our artists can sell O2 arenas, can sell the Wembley stadiums, can sell out all those big, then
All right.
if it happens in Nigeria, people can flock in.
All right.
That's right.
It's, one of the things is to convince these creators, these creative people, these artistic people,
Yeah.
to see Nigeria first and start their charity from home.
Patriotism, that's a fine place to leave the conversation. Yes. CEO, the Musical Copyright Society Nigeria Limited, Mayo Ayilaran, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Secretary.
This is where we draw the curtains on the program for today and the week. All right, tomorrow. Tomorrow is another day. Yes, we begin our weekend edition of the program tomorrow, same time, 7 a.m. And you can join us. Trust me, it's also going to be an interesting one. But let's tell you now that the views and reactions of all our resource persons are theirs and have no connection with TVC News.